a look at righteous indignation, holy anger, having the Holy Spirit release through you, maybe. I don't know. But there are examples. I asked ChatGPT to give me some examples of holy anger. And holy anger, if we were to define it, I mean, ChatGPT calls holy anger, or says that it refers to righteous indignation or anger that arises from witnessing injustice, moral wrongs, or actions contrary to divine principles. So, so spirituality, or at least religion, I'd say, is deeply tied to morality. That morality, of course, comes from when the Bible was written a couple of thousand years ago, was a different moral. People had a different moral compass than they do today, and we see, differences basically between different religious fractions and people who are more traditional in their values and more religious, whereas more progressive values we see, for example, you could have had holy anger towards homosexuals, for example. People still do, and in many places of the world, I imagine people will still do. So this idea of holy anger, that it comes from a divine place, I wonder, because when it's about relative things, I haven't really thought about it. Maybe I should have before this. But I think it's interesting to ponder holy anger. What is it? It is, of course, a sort of righteous indignation, as ChatGPT says, something that comes from within, something, the most famous example from the Bible, at least, or I think all of religion, probably, at least in the Western world, is Jesus getting angry at the moneylenders. So he pushed or kicked the tables over, and he got them out of the church territory, and he got angry. That is also something, should we even become angry as spiritual people? There are definitely a lot of instances of that. If you take the Old Testament, God is sort of habitually angry and getting angry, which is, of course, it's human beings who have written it. And however you want to think about it, but I think it's obvious that it's, affected the way it's communicated from the time it was written, just as the moral indignation towards things that we today see quite the opposite. For example, again, with homosexuality. Most people, well, I don't know if it's most people, but I think a large degree of Western people, at least, do accept homosexuality, at least. And there are, at least in Scandinavia, the Nordic countries where I live, it's it's not it's not a problem at all. Most people are very pro even homosexuality. I don't know what you want to call it, but very accepting of it, like it's totally fine, which is a new thing in history. And so, looking at holy anger towards something that used to be something that was seen as morally wrong. Again, I just find that to be interesting. So what is holy anger? Because having righteous indignation towards homosexuality was wrong. It wasn't right? It was never right according to me, at least. Everyone has a right to their own opinion. But I think today, again, most people in the Western world find that it's quite all right, as it should be. And then there are, of course, countries where it's not. It's even illegal in many countries and punished. So where where do the this took another turn, but where do the moral indignation come in here, or the moral righteousness? So I imagine that holy anger has more to do with the energetics of it, even though we can be off, just like many teachers throughout history were. It wasn't that, I mean, homosexuality, I imagine, in for everyone, a couple of thousand or even a couple of 100 years ago, or just 100 years ago, was seen as a bad thing by most of humanity. So all spiritual teachers, all people having holy anger, thought of it as wrong, and could even have more holy anger towards it. So that, I think that's a way to contextualize it. We can think about the absolute truths, absolute truths, such as in the Buddhist canon, we have emptiness. Emptiness and form is one. Those are sort of absolute truths that are unchanging. Just this moment will always be just this moment, although the phenomena within it, of course, changes. But the truth in form is emptiness. Emptiness in form will not change, probably. Yet the phenomena changes. Our moral indignations change. The morality changes throughout history. Our understanding of the world changes throughout history. And we evolve as human beings. We evolve our moral compass, at least according to me. And in that, if we see holy anger as moral indignation, or something that is excuse me, some sort of energetics within us when we are in line with spirit, but spirit isn't omniscious in that way. Sorry, spirit isn't omniscious or if that was spirit acting through someone, spirit was wrong. I find that to be funny. I find that to be interesting. It's really something to ponder. Where is spirit? Where is God? Or how can God God be wrong? How can holy anger be wrong or off? Well, because of the evolving nature of the relative world, I would say. In the end, of course, or not of course, but as I see it, and as many traditions see it, there's only one thing. But within that one thing, or within form is emptiness, emptiness is form, there is a relative world, we could say, in relative terms, that evolves again. Human beings evolve, our cognition evolves. Adding, book reading, we evolve our abstract thinking. When we learn things, we evolve our thinking, and our morality has evolved. So our righteous indignation is geared toward somewhat other things. It's still, as the examples given here in by ChatGPT, is they speak to some extent about idolatry, which is still present today, and which isn't a morality shift that needs to happen. As I see it, at least, we can. I don't know again if we need to have holy anger towards it, but in many traditions, even in Buddhism, if you see the Buddha on the road, you should kill him. They say you should get rid of it, get rid of him. In saying that you are the Buddha, that's of course not what many of the Abrahamic religions say. They are not saying you are God, but the mystical traditions like Sufism, Kabbala, or Christian mysticism, they do say that in different words, like Meister Eckhart or Rumi or someone like that. They do point to that same conclusion that all the mystical traditions do, which is something ineffable, something beyond words. It's the cloud of unknowing, it's whatever, but it's, in many ways, even nothing exists in a way. Even God disappears in that I remember Bernadette Roberts, Christian mystic, writing about that. Her own experience where even God fall away from her. Okay. This anger underscores the importance. They speak about Jesus' anger at the Pharisees. And I'm just going to say the significance of it, according to ChatGPT, is that this anger underscores the importance of sincerity, mercy, and true adherence to God's will over mere ritualistic observance. So, the importance of sincerity and mercy, and those again, they will shift. They will shift in a relative world. Being sincere will be different in different culture and different at different times in the same culture. And the same thing with mercy. What is mercy? It's the same with morality. Morality will change. The things that were written in the Bible or other old texts about cultural things and how they viewed it has changed. And the moral indignation for it or holy anger about it will also change with that. And that again, it's almost like a koan for me, like a deep question in that. What is holy anger? I would say, I would imagine some, at least atheist or someone who is interested in spirituality at all, would say that, yeah, you can't really speak about holy anger because it's just the people who had holy anger back in the day. If that was God acting through that person, God was wrong. God was wrong, and how could that be? Or how could something that is supposed to be holy be so off? Why would they burn? Yeah, say holy anger towards women who practiced, or men for that matter, who practiced paganism, or someone like Meister Eckart, who had his thesis condemned because it wasn't in the canon of the Bible, or the way Christianity were supposed to be, I guess. I'm not a history buff on that, but that's how I understand it. Yet there still is this, I would say, for me at least, to still try to make it as a real thing. I would say that what is really prevalent for it is this idea of having an energetic impulse that isn't really about you, yourself. It is not about the ego. It's not it isn't Jesus, shall we say, to use him as an example, when he got angry at the moneylenders. It wasn't his egoic mind that got angry. It was a righteous indignation. And this is also the problem with this, or trouble. You get into trouble with this because how do you know? And you can even be off. and if you're not off in a moment, maybe you will be off in 100 years or 1,000 years. But I think that there is a way of acting through beingness as opposed to identification with a separate self. So, and it's not to say that all spiritual masters, when they get angry, it is always holy anger, or it's just this crazy wisdom. I think it's really, we should be really aware of it, and it's laced with problems. Because they are still, everyone still has a human psychology there, and acting with anger, like in Buddhism, for example, it is generally seen as something that is to be avoided at all costs. I imagine maybe some tantric traditions, I don't know, because they tend to work more with different types of energies, even anger, at least work with them within themselves. I don't know if they work with it as even expressions, but I think that it can be transformed or transmuted, anger that is, into, for example, clarity, so we can become more clear through anger, through that, because it's an energetic, again, it's energy moving through us or within us. Usually it happens when we're triggered. Usually it happens when the separate self sense got, angry for some reason, maybe got felt shame for something, for example, which we normally just don't feel because it's so the response to it is so internalized and automatic. So the shame just goes to either anger towards ourselves or anger towards others, and it's definitely not holy anger. And how do we discern? I don't really know. I think it's a felt sense when you're in a room or if you see someone. And when it's you yourself, it's the same, I think. It is felt sense, and I think you can deceive yourself. I think in general, anger is best not expressed. That's my take. I don't think it's a hot take even, even though anger can be perceived as a hot thing. Not in a good way then, of course. But anger usually is destructive and detrimental to relationships and situations or whatnot. It's very seldom a good thing. It just doesn't. Yet, I do think there is a place for holy anger. I do think it is there. I do think like for the Bible, and there are other examples in history and from Dante's Divine Comedy. That's also, there's a lot of like religious or semi-religious stuff. I'm trying to think of a movie or something where we have a holy anger, maybe Liam Neeson in Taken or something, who get this anger that he channels in a way into something constructive. When you do something, or Martin Luther King or someone that just see moral injustice in the world, and when you channel that, and it doesn't have to be anything that has to do anything about spirituality. It's just that religion often comes together with morality for good or bad, but acting in a way that is in accordance with your own beliefs and standing up for what's right. If just someone being bullied, for example, to stand up to that person, not the person being bullied, but the bully, that is, or someone doing. And again, all these things are relative. There aren't absolute truths in the relative world, which makes every action, in a way, depending on how you see it, good and bad, or neither, or both. There's really no good or bad. That is what the spiritual traditions also teach us. That in a way, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. There is no up or down. Good is only has relevance in reference to bad, up in reference to down, coming in reference to going. They need each other to exist, and ultimately, the truth of reality, your undying truth or your undying self, is beyond that. In a way, it is beyond thinking. So, and in that way, beyond good or bad. Yet we can't really say that. We can. It is neither this nor that. It's neither true that it's beyond anything, or that it's not, or both or neither. This is what Nagarjuna has taught with his neti, not this, not this, not that. And like the apophatic theology in Christian mysticism, for example, it's prevalent in all major traditions, mystical traditions, that is, that neither right nor wrong. But even saying that is not correct. So there's only negations all the way. So in the end, we just act. We try to be in flow, and I would say being in flow makes being in holy anger, when there is anger there, more likely, Because when you're in holy anger, or when you're in flow rather, the separate self-sense is lessened or even extinguished. You're just present, you're just there, you're just living, you're just doing, you're just acting. Just like the traditions say that we are supposed to live our lives. Not just when we're angry, but especially then, I would say. And if we're not in flow, which most of us aren't most of the time, I imagine that it's better to sort of check yourself. You could always try to retrospectively. I mean, if it's a low risk situation, you could try to be holy anger, I guess. And again, anger. I don't know if we even want to. What is holy anger even? I would say that it is anger that isn't coming from a triggered position in the separate self, in the ego, in the egoic mind. And righteous anger, for moral conundrums or things in society that aren't right, or someone being bullied, that doesn't necessarily need to be holy anger, although it could be good anger still. So we have holy anger, which is the separate sense self or egoic self not being present when the anger is there. It's just an expression. Again, it doesn't have to be a good thing. It doesn't to be good, neither the actual act in itself or the outcomes of it or anything. It's just that I think it's a necessity for holy anger. I think so, at least at this moment. How else would we define it? Maybe if you have any ideas, please write in the comments, in the comment section. What is holy anger? How do we define it? How do we know when it's there? How can we ascertain if it's there? And then we have just good morality, which is good, and anger, which is good based on morality or moral principles. For example, you shouldn't bully someone, or you shouldn't treat people bad. And saying no to that is, of course, a good thing. Then people, of course, also have different opinions about what are good or bad things and what we should have moral qualms about. That is the relative world again. But it's a different type of morality rather than, I think, righteous indignation or holy indignation or holy anger, rather. I think we need to define that differently than just being, just being angry because with good but I think it's also good to I'm not making much sense here, but good thing to make a discernment between good anger, which is anger, I mean, in a relative sense, just good anger, a good way of expressing it, is when you feel anger and you do something about it, basically. Not lashing out towards someone or making a scene, maybe, but doing something, channeling that anger into something, like many civil rights activists have done. They channel that anger. And also, walking around feeling angry, usually not a good thing either, I think. It's probably not good for you. But to the extent that, and I think here is where spirituality comes in, but because to the extent that we can sort of feel that anger and not have the separate self sense or egoic mind there to kind of bathe in it and make it worse, ruminate over it, have all these thoughts about it. If we lessen that through spiritual practices, I think that's a great thing. So then we have the energy, the fuel, so to speak, in the anger. That is something that we feel is wrong or off or whatever, and we have the energy to do something about it. Yet we're not being bogged down by its power, by our egoic mind or narrative self-sense, narrative thoughts, self-referential thoughts. They are not making it worse for us. So yeah, so there we have it. Maybe good anger in terms of relative anger, where for everyone basically, where we have anger which we channel towards something that is good for society or good for other people or for ourselves. Lashing out at people usually is just to be avoided, to me at least. And adding spiritual practices, or if we have done spiritual practices or just aren't very narcissistic or egoic, or just don't have a mind, thinking mind that we believe too much, then that fuel can be more pure in a way, or the fuel may be the same, but it isn't made, we're not suffering from it unnecessarily through our thinking mind. And then maybe there also is this sort of flow state, this flow state which adds anger. So we have no thoughts in a way, we have just being. And we have anger. And maybe that is a sort of holy anger in which we're not even thinking, we're just acting. I imagine many people would say, I wasn't thinking, I was just angry. That is not what I mean. It's really hard to say what it would be. I would say that it's a felt sense even, which make it really, unusual and just hard to define it or see it or believe in it even, probably. But I think, to me, intuitively, instinctively, I feel like it is there. Like every expression can be there, every emotion can be there, and even be expressed in a loving way, in a way. When there is no egoic self there, it's just a pure expression of whatever, of love, of anger. Can that be done? Yeah, I think so. Maybe you need to add love to it, so it's love and anger at the same time. Is that possible? Yeah, I think so. It feels true to me when I say it, at least. Okay, that's it. Thank you.